Welcome! By assisting with Read Naturally Live, you're helping your student to become a fluent reader who comprehends well and enjoys reading. This video covers some basics about your role as a Read Live assistant. Along the way, we'll touch on places where your student may ask for help. To begin, your student logs in from the Student Login page. From this page, your student enters the account ID, user ID, and password. This is the student's login information, not yours. If your student has forgotten their login, contact the student's teacher. Once logged in, your student chooses one of the short nonfiction stories and independently works through a series of steps. This progress bar lists the steps and highlights the one your student is on. Many students can finish the steps of a story in 30 to 45 minutes, but they don't have to finish it in a single session. Ideally, students work and Read Naturally Live 3 to 5 days a week in 30 to 45-minute sessions. But every student is unique, and your student's teacher may have different guidelines. After a teacher has taught your student to use the program, your student works on their own for most of the steps. Audio instructions guide your student, but new students sometimes forget what to do. If necessary, remind your student that this button replays the current instructions in English, and this button plays them in Spanish. For example, on this first step, keywords.
Click each key word to learn the word and what it means.
The student clicks all the words.
Capsized. Capsized means tipped upside down.
After hearing the lesson for each word, your student can click Next to move on. Each step has its own activities, and the Next button is dimmed until those activities are done. If your student can't click Next, click this star to see what's required for the current step. On the prediction page, your student types a sentence to predict what the story will be about. Once this is done, Next becomes clickable. Your student should be able to work through the previous steps independently. Depending on options set by the teacher, your student may do the cold timing step on their own, or you might be required to help. If you see a page with a red header and footer that says Waiting for Teacher, your help is needed. Anytime you see a page with red bars, it means your student can't move on until you help. While waiting for you, your student plays a word game. Ideally, the student shouldn't wait more than a few minutes before you're available to help. When you arrive, sit or stand next to your student so you can both see the screen. Click the yellow button at the top of the page that says Conduct Cold Timing. Enter your user ID and password here, not the student's. If you're unsure of your login information, contact your student's teacher. To keep your login secure, never share your user ID and password with your student. Once you're logged in, the bottom of the page says Teacher Present. You should stay with the student until you get to a page without this label. On this step, your student reads the story for the first time. When you're both ready, tell your student to click Start Timing. Ask your student to click on words they don't know to hear the words read aloud.
Capsized.
This is a timed reading, so don't discuss or correct any errors during the timing. Just point to each error and tell the student to click it.
Lighthouse.
If the bell sounds, tell your student to stop reading and to click the last word they read. If the student finishes the story before the bell sounds, tell them to click Finished on the last page. Whether working alone on this step or working with you, the student might get stuck if the cold score is too high. Most often, this happens if the student inaccurately clicked the last word read or clicked Finished before really finishing the story. In this case, the student should repeat the timing, being careful to click the last word they really read. But if you're with the student and you're confident the timing was done correctly, talk to your student's teacher about raising the student's goal. On clicking Next, notice there's no Teacher Present label. This means you can leave the student to work independently again. On the next step, the student clicks Start Read Along and reads the entire story along with the narrator at a slow pace several times.
A boat capsized in Newport Harbor, Rhode Island.
For this activity, it's important for your student to read out loud, quietly along with the narrator, and not just listen to the story.
4 men fell into the cold water. From the lighthouse, a girl was the bravest woman in America.
Next, the student does a timed reading of the story without the narrator. Your student won't be able to click Next until they've read at their goal rate and practiced the required number of times. If your student doesn't know their goal, you can find it here. Typically, students practice 3 to 10 times before reaching their goal. After practicing the story, students have to answer some quiz questions. They work on this step independently, but some students may need help reading the questions. After the quiz, some students are asked to retell or summarize the story in their own words. Other students are asked to read lists of words until they can read both down the columns and across the rows within a set time. After finishing the word list, students are asked to spell several words and compare their answers to the correct spelling. Remember, you can click the star icon to see the requirements for the page. Now your student is ready to pass. This is where you check the student's work to see if they can meet the requirements to pass the story. Remember, when you see red bars, it means the student needs your help to move on. While waiting for you, your student practices the story, plays a word game, and has an opportunity to record the story. When you're ready to help, click the yellow Conduct Pass Activities button and enter your login information. For the hot timing, you'll either listen to the recording your student made or listen to your student read the story aloud. If your student made a recording, you can score it by selecting this option. If instead you want to hear the student read aloud, click this option, or if there's no recording, click Start Timing, and have your student read the story aloud to you. As you listen, count the number of errors you hear. When the bell rings, tell your student which word to click for the last word read. If the student finishes the story before the bell rings, tell them to click Finished on the last page. Enter the number of words the student missed. Then enter an expression score. Click this icon to show the rating scale. Click Next to see a graph of the timing results. The blue bar shows how your student did on the cold timing, and the red bar shows how the student did on the just completed hot timing. After conducting the hot timing, you'll need to review one or more quiz questions. Click See Correct Answer to see the answer key. If your student had to retell the story, you'll be asked to evaluate this work. This is a subjective rating, and your expectations will depend on your student's age and skill level. For example, very young children may write a few phrases about the story, but you might expect older students to write a summary sentence with some supporting facts. Your student's teacher may supply other guidelines for grading the quiz or the retell step. If instead of retelling the story, your student practiced reading a word list, you'll be asked to listen to them do a timed reading of the list, counting errors as the student reads. Like the story hot timing, you'll either listen to the recording your student made or listen to your student read the word list aloud. To start, you or your student will click Score Recording and select one of the options. If there's no recording, you'll just click Start Timing. Then, listen and count errors as the student reads down the columns, clicks Finished, reads across the rows, and clicks Finished again. When the timing is done, enter the number of mistakes you counted. Now you've graded all the activities, and it's time to see the results. This page lists the requirements for passing and how your student did. A gold star means your student passed the activity. An X means the requirements weren't met. To pass, your student must reach their goal on the hot timing, make 3 or fewer errors when reading the story. Read the story with an expression rating of at least 2. Answer all the quiz questions correctly and meet expectations for retelling the story. Or read the word list within the specified time with 3 or fewer errors. Your student must also spell all the words correctly before the student sees the correct answer. If your student gets any X's, clicking Next takes you to this page. Here you send the student back to rework steps with X's. For example, your student may need to practice the story again. You also have the option to pass the student with current scores. But it's important to hold students accountable, so don't use this option very often. On clicking Next, your student will go back to the selected steps to redo their work. You may need to come back later to retest the student. When you see all gold stars on this page, your student has passed the story. Clicking Next displays the Congratulations page. This is a good time to praise and encourage your student.
Please select a story.
That's it. Once the story's finished, your student can select another one and begin the process again. If you have questions, you can access more videos by going to the Read Live landing page, clicking Staff Member, and then entering your account number, user ID, and password. This page has links to resources, along with videos that go into more details about the program.